The sun was beginning its slow descent behind the distant hills, casting long shadows over the wide, empty fields of the ranch. The rancher, a tall, weathered man named Daniel, was finishing up his evening chores. His boots crunched over the dry dirt as he checked the fence lines, making sure no cattle had wandered off. The air was calm, with only the faint rustle of the wind through the tall grass. It was a peaceful evening, much like any other, and Daniel took a deep breath, letting the quiet of the land soothe him. Just as he was about to head back to the farmhouse, a soft, strained voice reached his ears. "Please, help me." "Untie me," Daniel froze. The voice was weak, trembling, but desperate. His heart quickened as he scanned the horizon. A figure moved near the far edge of the ranch, stumbling slightly over the uneven ground. As she came closer, Daniel could see her more clearly. She was a young woman with dirt smudges on her clothes and small marks on her wrists, her hands showing faint signs of struggle. Daniel's instincts screamed caution. He knew that strangers in this area could sometimes bring trouble, but something about the fear in her eyes made him hesitate. There was no time to think. The woman's voice called again. "Please? I need your help." He approached slowly, hands visible, trying not to startle her. "Hey there," he called gently. "It's okay. You're safe. Come this way." Her eyes widened and she took a careful step forward. Daniel noticed the way her shoulders were tense, her body poised as if ready to flee at any moment. She was scared, but she seemed genuine. That alone was enough to convince him to act. "Don't worry," Daniel said, keeping his voice calm. "We'll figure this out." He led her toward a small shed near the farmhouse. It was a place where he kept tools and supplies, and it offered a bit of shelter and privacy. She followed, her movements hesitant, her gaze constantly scanning the surroundings. Once inside, Daniel knelt slightly to meet her eyes. "Can you tell me what happened?" he asked. The woman swallowed hard, her voice shaking. I don't know where to start. Someone hurt me, and they left me tied up. I don't know why, but I had to get away." Daniel's heart ached at the words. He had lived alone on this ranch for years, and while he was used to handling practical problems, this was different. This was a human being in need of care, someone whose life had been threatened. "Okay," he said softly. "You're safe now. You're on my ranch, and I won't let anyone hurt you here. Can I help you with your hands?" She nodded slowly, extending her wrist toward him. The ropes were tight and her skin was slightly red from the pressure, but Daniel worked carefully, untying them with gentle hands. She flinched at first, expecting pain, but he was careful not to hurt her. Once free, she rubbed her wrists and let out a shaky sigh. "Thank you," she whispered. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. Daniel nodded, not wanting to push her further. "You don't have to talk if you're not ready," he said. "Right now, just catch your breath." The woman leaned against the shed wall, her body trembling slightly. Daniel stepped back, giving her space, and went to the kitchen to fetch a glass of water. He returned and handed it to her. She took it with both hands, drinking slowly, trying to calm herself. As she drank, Daniel noticed small details: the dirt in her hair, the worn shoes, the slight bruises on her arms. It was clear that she had been through a lot, but she was still standing. There was a quiet strength in her, even in her fear. "You're brave," Daniel said quietly. "Most people in your situation would have given up." She looked up at him, surprised. "Brave?" she asked softly. "Yes," he replied. "You made it here. You got away. That takes courage." She gave a faint smile, almost a flicker of relief passing over her face. For the first time in hours, maybe even days, she seemed to relax a little. Daniel felt a mixture of admiration and concern. He knew the road ahead would be difficult for her, and he wanted to make sure she was safe. "Do you have somewhere to go?" he asked gently. She shook her head. I can't go back there. I don't know if it's safe." Daniel nodded, understanding immediately. "Then you'll stay here tonight. Tomorrow we can figure out the next step." The woman hesitated, then nodded. There was a fragile trust forming between them, born out of shared vulnerability in that quiet shed. Daniel realized how rare and delicate that trust was, and he vowed to honor it. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Daniel and the woman sat in quiet company. The ranch, normally a place of solitude, now held a new presence, a life that had been disrupted but not broken. Daniel glanced at her, seeing both the fear and the courage in her eyes. He knew this night would change both of them. She had asked for help and he had granted it. but neither of them could yet understand the impact this encounter would have. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying the sounds of the evening. Inside the shed, a fragile sense of safety settled around them. For the first time since her escape, the woman felt a small measure of relief. And for the rancher, the quiet ranch evening had taken on a weight he hadn't expected. A weight of responsibility, empathy, and the raw reality of human fragility. Neither spoke for a long while, yet the silence was not empty. It was filled with understanding, with the unspoken acknowledgement of what had just happened. Daniel kept an eye on her, ready to act if she needed anything, and she allowed herself to lean back slightly, just enough to feel that she was safe for the first time in what seemed like forever. As darkness slowly crept over the ranch, Daniel made a silent promise. No matter what came next, he would protect her, and he would do everything in his power to ensure she was not alone. That promise, though unspoken, bound them together in that quiet moment. A connection forged through trust, courage, and the simplest act of human kindness. The night settled over the ranch and the stars began to twinkle in the clear sky. Inside the small shed, the atmosphere was quiet but tense, the kind of silence that follows a storm. Daniel sat a short distance from the young woman, whose name he had just learned was Emma. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to stay warm, her eyes reflecting both fear and exhaustion. Daniel wanted to give her time to let her rest, but he also knew that sometimes speaking about one's troubles could ease the weight of fear. He spoke gently, careful not to rush her. "Emma, you don't have to tell me anything you're not ready to, but if it helps to talk, I'm here to listen." Emma hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor. For a long moment, she seemed lost in thought. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she began, "I didn't mean to get involved. I was just at the wrong place at the wrong time." Daniel nodded, encouraging her to continue without pushing. I was walking home from work when I saw something I shouldn't have. Some people, they noticed me. They thought I was a witness. I tried to get away, but they caught me. They tied me up and I managed to escape when they were distracted. I ran as far as I could." Daniel listened carefully, feeling a mix of anger and concern. He could imagine the terror she must have felt, and yet she had survived. Her courage was clear, even in her fear. "I don't know why they left me," Emma continued, her voice trembling. "Maybe they thought I wouldn't survive the night. But I did. I kept moving, hoping someone would find me." Daniel felt a deep respect for her strength. Many people faced with such danger might have panicked or given up entirely, but she had kept going, driven by hope and determination. "You're very brave, Emma," Daniel said softly. "Most people wouldn't have made it this far on their own." She looked at him, a faint tear slipping down her cheek. "I don't feel brave," she admitted. "I feel scared, and tired, and alone." Daniel nodded, understanding completely. "I know it feels that way now. But you're not alone anymore. You're safe here, and we'll figure out the next steps together." For a moment, Emma just sat quietly, sipping the water he had brought her. The calmness of the ranch contrasted sharply with the chaos she had fled from. The sounds of the night, the gentle rustle of the wind, the distant call of an owl, were foreign to her, yet strangely comforting. "I don't even know what to do next," she admitted finally. "I can't go back home. I can't face them again. I don't know anyone I can trust." Daniel considered her words carefully. He wanted to help her in a way that gave her agency, rather than simply making decisions for her. "We'll find a safe place for you," he said. "Somewhere you can rest, somewhere you can be protected. But tonight you can stay here. No one will hurt you here." She nodded, the tension in her body slowly easing. For the first time since her escape, she allowed herself to breathe freely. Daniel decided to prepare a small meal for her, knowing that food often brought a sense of normalcy. As he cooked, Emma watched quietly, occasionally glancing at him with a mixture of curiosity and gratitude. There was a subtle bond forming between them, born out of trust and shared humanity. When the meal was ready, they ate together in silence, the quiet broken only by the soft sounds of eating and the occasional sigh. It was not a conversation filled with joy or laughter, but it was a moment of connection, a small anchor of safety in a chaotic world. After the meal, Daniel suggested they take a short walk outside, to stretch their legs and enjoy the cool night air. Emma agreed, and they stepped into the open fields together. The stars above seemed brighter than ever, and the vastness of the ranch made her feel both small and safe at the same time. "Do you come out here often?" Emma asked, her voice quieter than usual. "Every evening," Daniel replied. "It's peaceful here. It gives me time to think and reflect. And tonight I think it's given you a bit of peace too." Emma nodded slowly. "It's strange. I've never been somewhere so quiet. No noise, no danger, just calm." Daniel smiled. "That's the ranch. It doesn't have the chaos of the town. It's a place to heal, to recover, to find yourself again." As they walked, Emma began to share small details about her life before the incident. Her work, her family, her simple routines. Each detail painted a picture of an ordinary life that had been disrupted by extraordinary circumstances. Daniel listened attentively, offering gentle responses and encouragement. "You have a lot of strength, Emma," he said finally. "Not everyone could face what you've faced and keep going. You've done what you needed to survive." She looked at him, a faint smile breaking through the fear. "I don't feel strong, I just kept moving because I had to." Daniel understood completely. Strength wasn't always about feeling powerful. Sometimes it was about perseverance, about taking one small step after another even when the world seemed against you. They returned to the shed, the night air cool against their skin. Emma sat quietly, reflecting on the first evening she had spent in safety. For the first time since her escape, she allowed herself to feel hope. She still carried fear, but it was now tempered with the possibility of trust, of care, of protection. Daniel watched her, realizing that his life had changed as well. He had come into the evening expecting a quiet routine, chores, and solitude. Instead, he had encountered someone in desperate need, and in helping her, he had been reminded of the fragility of life and the power of human connection. For hours, they simply existed in that quiet companionship. No words were necessary. The understanding between them was enough. Emma knew she was not alone. Daniel knew that he had made a difference, however small, in someone's life. Finally, as fatigue overtook her, Emma lay down on a makeshift bed Daniel had prepared. She closed her eyes, allowing herself to rest for the first time in what felt like forever. Daniel watched over her for a while, making sure she was safe and comfortable. Then, satisfied that she was secure, he stepped outside to check the perimeter of the ranch. His mind still alert, his heart thoughtful. The stars shone above, and the ranch was silent except for the gentle sounds of the night. For Daniel, the evening had been a reminder of the unexpected challenges life could bring. For Emma, it had been a night of first steps towards safety and trust. In the darkness, both felt the quiet bond forming between them, a bond built on understanding, courage, and the simplest acts of kindness. Neither knew what the coming days would bring, but both were beginning to realize that they could face them together. And for the first time in a long while, hope was no longer a distant thought. It was a presence, quiet but undeniable, stretching across the ranch and into their lives. Part 3, Facing the Past. The morning sun rose slowly over the ranch, casting golden light across the wide fields. Daniel was already awake, walking along the fence line, his mind alert and thoughtful. Last night's events weighed heavily on him. Helping someone in need was not new to him, but witnessing fear and courage so closely had shaken him more than he expected. Inside the shed, Emma stirred, her eyes fluttering open to the soft light filtering through the small window. She felt a mixture of relief and unease. The night had been calm, and for the first time she had slept without constant fear. Yet the memory of her ordeal remained vivid. She sat up, taking a deep breath, trying to steady herself. Daniel entered with a warm cup of coffee and a small plate of breakfast. "Good morning," he said softly. "Sleep well?" Emma nodded. "Better than I expected," she admitted. "Thank you." "For last night," Daniel smiled gently. "You don't have to thank me. You were brave enough to come here. I only helped you get the rest you needed." After a moment, Emma looked down at her hands. "I don't know what I should do next," she said quietly. "I can't go back to where I came from." "I can't face them." Daniel nodded, understanding completely. "We'll figure it out," he said. "But first, maybe talking about it will help. Not to dwell on the past, but to plan the next steps." Emma hesitated, then began to speak. Her voice was soft, hesitant, but steady. "I was walking home from work when I saw something I shouldn't have. Something that put me in danger. I didn't want trouble. I just wanted to go home, but they noticed me. They thought I knew too much. I ran, but they tied me up and left me, thinking I wouldn't escape. But I did. I ran until I couldn't anymore. Daniel listened carefully, not interrupting. Every word she spoke carried fear, confusion, and strength. It was clear she had endured much more than anyone should have. And yet here she was, standing, moving, surviving. "You're incredibly strong, Emma," Daniel said gently. "Not everyone could go through what you did and come this far." She looked up at him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I don't feel strong," she whispered. I had no choice but to keep moving. I was scared. I still am," Daniel nodded. "That's normal. Being brave doesn't mean you don't feel fear. It means you keep going even though you're afraid." They finished breakfast in quiet, the simple act of eating together providing a small sense of normalcy. Afterward, Daniel suggested they take a walk outside. The air was fresh, filled with the scent of grass and earth, and the sun's warmth began to ease the tension that lingered in Emma's shoulders. As they walked, Emma spoke about her life before the incident, her family, her work, the simple joys she had enjoyed. Each story reminded her of a life that had been interrupted, a life she wanted to reclaim. Daniel listened attentively, offering encouragement and understanding. "You've been through so much, but you're still here," he said. "That's worth recognizing. It shows you have the strength to move forward." Emma nodded slowly. "I hope so," she said softly. "I want to move forward, but it feels hard." Daniel stopped walking for a moment and looked at her with seriousness and care. "Moving forward isn't easy. It takes time, patience, and support, and that's okay. You don't have to do it alone." The day passed slowly, filled with quiet moments of reflection, small chores around the ranch, and the soft companionship of shared presence. Emma began to realize that safety and trust could exist again, even after everything she had experienced. The ranch, with its open fields, calm skies, and the steady presence of Daniel, offered her a sense of peace she hadn't felt in weeks. By afternoon, Daniel decided it was time to consider the next steps for Emma's safety. "We need to think about your options," he said. "There are safe places where you can stay, people who can help, but I want you to have a choice in what happens next." Emma nodded, appreciating his careful approach. "I don't want to feel trapped again," she said. "I just want to be safe and start over." Daniel smiled. "Then that's what we'll work toward, step by step. No rushing, no pressure, just safety, and the chance to rebuild your life." As they talked, Daniel began to see the layers of Emma's courage. She had faced danger, escaped, and had the strength to ask for help when she needed it most. She was not a victim. She was a survivor, and survivors, he knew, often needed someone to stand beside them while they regained their footing. Evening came again, and the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. The air was cooler now, carrying a gentle breeze that rustled the grass. Emma sat on the porch steps watching the colors shift in the sky. Daniel joined her, sitting quietly. For a long time they said nothing. The silence was not empty. It was filled with reflection and the quiet understanding of two people sharing an extraordinary experience. Finally, Emma spoke, her voice soft but certain. "I don't know what will happen tomorrow," she said, "but for the first time in a long time I feel a little hopeful." Daniel nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest. "That's a good start," he said. "Tomorrow is another day and we'll face it together." The ranch settled into night once more, the stars emerging in the clear sky. Emma went to bed, her mind still restless but lighter than the night before. Daniel stayed outside for a while, walking along the fence line, thinking about the courage he had witnessed and the trust that was forming. He realized that helping someone like Emma wasn't just about safety or protection. It was about giving them the chance to feel human again, to regain control over their own life, and to trust that kindness still existed. And for Emma, the ranch was becoming a place where she could start that journey, a place where fear was no longer the only emotion she felt, a place where trust, safety, and hope could grow slowly but surely. As the night deepened, both of them understood that the days ahead would bring challenges. But they also knew that together they could face them. The bond between them, fragile but real, would guide the next steps, a bond built on courage, understanding, and the simple power of human kindness. In that quiet moment, beneath the vast sky and the calm of the ranch, the past felt a little less heavy and the future seemed for the first time a little brighter. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of earth and wild grass across the ranch. Daniel was up early, checking the fences and making sure the cattle were accounted for. The peaceful routine of the ranch had always been comforting to him, but today there was a subtle tension in the air. He could not shake the feeling that something was approaching, though he could not tell what it might be. Emma emerged from the shed, still carrying a hint of worry in her eyes. She had slept better than the nights before, but unease lingered. "Good morning," she said softly, her voice carrying the fragile hope she had begun to feel. Daniel smiled, handing her a cup of warm tea. "Morning," he replied.
Sleep well?
"A little," she admitted. "I keep thinking about everything that happened, about how close I came to not making it." Daniel nodded, understanding. "It's natural to feel that way, but you're here now. You're safe." They shared a quiet breakfast, the sunlight spilling across the table and warming the small kitchen. Afterward, Daniel suggested a walk to the far fields of the ranch, a place he often went to think. Emma agreed, appreciating the simplicity and calm of the surroundings. As they walked, the wind rustled the grass and birds called from the nearby trees. For a while, they spoke lightly about daily life, the beauty of the ranch, and small dreams for the future. Emma smiled for the first time in days, feeling a sense of freedom she had not felt since the ordeal began. But suddenly, the peacefulness was broken. In the distance, Daniel noticed movement near the edge of the property, shadows that did not belong to the cattle or the wind. His instincts immediately went on alert. He slowed, crouching slightly behind a small rise to get a better view. "Emma," he whispered, "stay close to me, and stay quiet." Emma froze, fear washing over her again. She felt her heart pounding in her chest. What is it?" she asked softly. "I'm not sure yet," Daniel replied, keeping his voice calm. "But we need to be careful." The movement grew closer, revealing itself to be two men walking along the edge of the ranch. Daniel recognized the sense of purpose in their steps. They were searching, scanning the area, unaware of the open terrain before them. His mind raced. He needed to protect Emma, and he needed to act quickly. "Follow me," he said quietly, guiding her along a narrow path toward a small grove of trees. The tall grass hid their movements, giving them cover. Emma's breathing was shallow, but she trusted Daniel completely, following his lead without question. Once they reached the safety of the grove, Daniel crouched behind a tree, peeking through the branches at the approaching men. He realized that they were the same individuals Emma had described, the ones who had put her in danger. The thought sent a shiver down his spine, but he knew panic would not help. He needed a plan. "They're looking for you," Daniel whispered, "but we can stay hidden until they leave. They won't find us here if we're careful." Emma nodded, gripping his hand tightly. She felt both fear and trust, fear of what might happen if they were discovered, trust that Daniel would keep her safe. Minutes passed slowly, each one stretching longer than the last. The men walked past the grove, speaking quietly to each other, unaware of the small figures watching from the shadows. Daniel's heart raced, but he remained calm, guiding Emma's breathing to keep her steady. Finally, the men moved far enough away that Daniel felt confident they were no longer an immediate threat. He gently led Emma back toward the ranch, keeping a watchful eye on their surroundings. Each step was careful, deliberate, but they moved steadily, putting distance between themselves and danger. Back at the shed, Emma sank into a chair, her body trembling with relief. Daniel sat nearby, his mind still alert but his body beginning to relax. "You're safe now," he said softly. "They're gone." Emma looked at him, gratitude shining through her tired eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. I don't know what I would have done without you." Daniel shook his head. "You did everything you could to survive. I just helped. That's all." For the rest of the day, they remained close to the farmhouse, completing small chores and keeping watch over the ranch. The incident had reminded both of them how fragile safety could be, but it had also strengthened their bond. They were learning to rely on each other, to trust not just in themselves but in one another. As evening approached, Daniel suggested they sit on the porch to watch the sunset. The sky turned brilliant shades of orange and pink, and the air cooled with the coming night. Emma leaned back, taking in the colors, letting the calm of the moment wash over her. "You know," Daniel said quietly, You've shown a lot of courage today, not just in escaping but in staying calm and trusting me. That's not easy. Emma smiled faintly. I guess. I didn't have a choice, she admitted. But I'm glad I did. Daniel nodded, sensing the strength beneath her words. Sometimes courage is about the choices we make when we feel afraid. And today you made the right choices. For a long time they sat together in silence, watching the sun disappear behind the hills. The world felt still, safe, and full of possibility. Emma felt a small but growing sense of confidence, a feeling that she could face challenges and survive. Daniel reflected on the events of the day. He had expected a routine life on the ranch, but instead, he had been part of something extraordinary, helping someone face danger, survive it, and begin to heal. He realized that protecting someone was not just about physical safety. It was about offering reassurance, trust, and a steady presence. Night fell over the ranch, and the stars appeared one by one in the clear sky. Emma went to bed with a sense of cautious hope. She still carried fear, but it was now tempered with trust and the knowledge that she was not alone. Daniel stayed outside for a while, walking along the fence line, his thoughts deep. Today had been a reminder that danger could appear when least expected, but it had also shown the strength of courage and trust. And he knew no matter what came next, he and Emma could face it together. The ranch was quiet once more, but the bond between them had grown stronger. The events of the day had shaken them, yes, but they had also shown them that fear could be faced, danger could be survived, and trust could be built even in the most uncertain moments. And as the night deepened, both Daniel and Emma knew that the days ahead would continue to bring challenges, but they were no longer facing them alone. Together they could find safety, strength, and perhaps even a new beginning. The morning sun spilled over the rolling fields of the ranch, bringing warmth and light to every corner. Daniel walked along the fence line, feeling a sense of calm he hadn't felt in weeks. After the events of the past days, the ranch seemed peaceful again, almost as if it had been holding its breath while danger had passed. Inside the farmhouse, Emma was awake early too. She moved quietly around the kitchen, helping Daniel with breakfast. The simple routine of preparing food and tidying up felt grounding, as if it reminded her that life could have normal, safe moments even after fear. You've adjusted quickly, Daniel said, smiling as he poured coffee into mugs. Emma looked at him and smiled faintly. I guess I have to, she replied softly. It helps to have someone to guide me, even just a little. Daniel nodded. We've faced a lot together, Emma. But today is about small steps. Nothing huge, nothing dangerous, just normal life. They ate breakfast in comfortable silence, the sun rising higher and warming the room. Emma's mind wandered for a moment, thinking about how different life felt now. Calmer, safer, and yet still filled with hope. She had survived danger, found safety, and experienced trust in a way she had not thought possible. After breakfast, Daniel suggested they take a walk along the far side of the ranch, a place where the land opened up into wide meadows and rolling hills. As they walked, Emma began speaking about her plans for the future, small hopes and simple goals that had been impossible before. I want to find a safe place to stay for a while, she said quietly. Somewhere I can work and rebuild a little. I don't need everything back immediately, just safety and normalcy. Daniel nodded, appreciating her clarity. That's a good plan, he said. Step by step. Safety first, then the rest can follow. And I'll help you however I can. As they walked, the wind carried the scent of wildflowers and fresh grass. Birds sang from the nearby trees, and the distant hills glowed in the morning light. Emma felt a sense of calm settle over her, a feeling that had been rare for weeks. She realized that she was no longer defined by fear. She was defined by her strength, her courage, and her ability to survive. You know, Daniel said after a pause, you've changed my life too. I've lived here for years thinking the world was predictable and safe. Then you arrived and everything shifted, but in a good way. You've reminded me that people can be strong, even when they feel weak, and that trust is worth giving. Emma looked at him, surprise and gratitude in her eyes. I didn't think I could make a difference, she said softly. But being here with you, I feel like I can start again. They walked in silence for a while, letting the calm of the land fill the space between words. Emma felt her heart lighten, the fear that had dominated her days replaced by cautious hope. Daniel felt a quiet pride and relief. relief that she was safe and pride in witnessing her resilience. Later that afternoon, Daniel helped Emma gather some belongings. She had decided to move to a nearby town where she could work, find safe housing, and begin rebuilding her life. It was a small step, but it was meaningful. The ranch had been a temporary refuge, a place of healing, and now it was time for her to take the next step toward independence. As they prepared to leave, Emma turned to Daniel. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice steady but full of emotion. "You trusted me, you protected me, and you gave me hope when I had none." Daniel smiled gently. "You don't need to thank me. You survived. You found your courage. That's what matters. And I'm glad I could help along the way." They walked to the edge of the ranch where Emma's car waited. She paused for a moment, looking back at the fields, the shed, and the wide open sky. For a brief moment, she felt the weight of the past, the fear and the uncertainty. But she also felt strength. She had survived. She had been cared for. And she was ready to face the future. Daniel placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "Remember," he said softly, step by step, "you're stronger than you know, and you're not alone." Emma nodded, taking a deep breath. She stepped into the car, her hands steady on the wheel. As she drove away from the ranch, she felt a mix of sadness and gratitude. Sadness to leave the place that had been a sanctuary, but gratitude for the safety, guidance, and kindness she had received. Back at the ranch, Daniel watched the car disappear down the dirt road. The sun was low now, casting long shadows over the fields. He felt a quiet peace knowing that Emma was safe and that she would carry forward the lessons of courage and trust. The ranch was quiet again, but it had been changed, not by danger, but by the presence of someone who had reminded him of the power of empathy and human connection. That evening, Daniel sat on the porch reflecting on the past days. He thought about the moments of fear, the sudden challenges, and the quiet moments of trust that had defined their time together. He realized that life could change in an instant, bringing both danger and opportunity, but that courage, kindness, and trust could guide people through even the darkest times. As darkness fell over the ranch, the stars began to twinkle once more. Daniel felt a deep sense of gratitude for the safety of the ranch, for the strength he had witnessed in Emma, and for the reminder that life, even when unpredictable, held moments of hope and connection. Emma's journey was just beginning, but she carried with her the experience of survival, trust, and courage. Daniel knew she would face challenges ahead, but he also knew that she had the strength to meet them. And for both of them, the events of the past days had left a lasting mark, not one of fear, but of resilience, trust, and the quiet power of human kindness. As the night settled over the ranch, Daniel looked up at the sky and felt a sense of peace. The world was wide and unpredictable, but he had learned that courage, empathy, and trust could make even the darkest moments bearable. And in that quiet moment, he knew that both he and Emma had found something precious: safety, hope, and the strength to move forward. The ranch returned to its peaceful rhythm, the wind whispering through the grass, the stars shining overhead, and life continuing under brighter, calmer, and full of possibility. Emma had survived. She had found trust, and together they had discovered that courage and kindness could light the way forward, even after fear.